Good morning. Welcome back to East Asia International Management. I am Professor Sean Watts, as you guys know. I'll share my screen so you guys have all the details. In addition to understanding the intro, the background of your entire environment, as we talked about in weeks 1 and 2, the whole idea of this. You guys can see my screen now, right? And in the screen, I'm showing a folder. I'm not mentioning names, but there's a folder of students that have started to create a presentation for their introduction, which was due this week. And they have another paper. They're starting to develop a paper, which if they publish something like that, that can help them quite a bit. And they have several different articles. These articles, many of them are considered valuable. You put that stuff together just as regular class activities, and you present it to people around you, especially employers, and you have a much stronger chance of getting employed. So that's one aspect. We see here the example of the PPT that students have talked about. We also have, here is the beginning of their introduction file with a few references. Very good. Here is a finished version of that. Students have, pay attention, they have found a famous journal that's one of the world's most highly respected journals, and they not only referenced it, but they used its style and its formatting as the design of their own paper. So even though this is a regular student paper, it looks like a professional magazine, professional journal article, but it's just a student paper because they've referenced the same style as others. And all of these green things are referencing, again, some of the world's best minds. If you learn what the best people are doing and then replicate them in business, that's called benchmarking. Well, 2,500 years ago, I don't think they had the words benchmarking. Those are new ideas. But the idea of learning from the strengths of others, working with the strengths of others, that's exactly what we're talking about. So this week, there's several different slides we can talk about. In these slides, we go through I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see them a little bit easier. We go through the introduction of the art of war, what it is, and then I want to talk about what you guys should be aware of for yourself. Then we'll review chapter 1, chapter 2, the different ideas of how people are different, cultures are different. And then we go through what students can do, and then we look at some interesting examples of what other people have identified in the art of war. And these are all just quotes or examples from the art of war.
Excuse me, Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, can you give us opportunity before we start chapter 3? We can present our topic.
You sure can.
Yes.
Great. So you have the ability to share your screen. Feel free to kick me out at any time. I just wanted to say for the rest of the class, after our short presentation from the student groups today, I'm going to be asking you guys, how can you use your environment? How can you use the art of war to help you guys? So with that said, feel free to go. Jong-moon, is there anybody else in your group other than you that wants to be able to share details?
Yeah, Ulungbek Manavo is my teammate, but I can share my screen.
Okay, so while we get ready for you to share your screen, this is the, okay, good, it's starting.
Sorry. Okay, good afternoon. This is group 1, which will present about understanding the influence of AI in tourism industry. Our group member is Ulungbuk Bag, Manavo, and Jongman. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name in a wrong way. This is our table of contents. Pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about the importance of topic Then we're going to give how we will research, and we also will give references from how we think about this, how we develop our ideas. So importance of topic. Um, we all know that coronavirus made everyone to stay at home, and it's very hard to get a visa to travel somewhere around the world, which means that when the virus is done, the demand for the tourism will be very high. And according to the refine.com 2019, the presence of artificial intelligence is so crucial that it will be applied into any sector of the industry, which means that artificial will be applied even in the tourism area. It will be everywhere. And Samala and other author on 2020 says technology such as facial recognition technology, virtual reality applications, chatbot robots, artificial intelligence in Google Maps, language translator, audio tours, ease of shopping, and etc. will continue to develop for satisfying customers' traveling experience. That's what I'm trying to say. AI will be applied to every single fields, especially even in the tourism. So we need to focus on tourism with the artificial intelligence. Also, we should not forget that tourism is a business um, dealing with human to human, which means there's a human touch. We are sharing the culture between the people. So even though the artificial technology or a lot of high technology is developing, we should not forget that there should be a human touch. There should be a emotion sharing. So I thought our group thought that those importance gives us idea that we should think about understanding the influence of AI in tourism industry. So next speaker will talk about our research methodology.
Hello, my name is Ulrich, and now I want to describe our research methodology. Our research methodology will be analyze and understand the information available on the internet. And after that, we will study our previous research papers and case studies, and they can help us to visualize the impact of AI in tourism industry. And also we may have some small survey about customers' attitude about using AI technology in the tourism industry. And after that, the results will be driven by statistical analysis.
So this is the references. Also, we already mentioned about the authors and articles, but just in case, this is the reference. And thank you for listening. But we are still considering if our topic should be um, more specific, like should we make understanding the influence of AI in tourism industry in South Korea, or should we make our topic like understanding the influence of AI in hotel management industry in South Korea? We are still considering about this topic, so feel free to comment our topic. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yay! You guys went well beyond just the introduction needed, talking about your research methodology and everything. Are there any students that have comments to answer Mr. Moon's question about, do you think he should be more specialized or not? Any comments? Go ahead. I see that you're about to click on and say something. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you were quite specific already. So maybe you can look in the literature and see if you find a lot about South Korea. But if you don't, maybe you shouldn't limit yourself too much, I think. Because it's a very global industry, and you basically want to travel all over the world. So it might be interesting to see more places.
There's one thing I want to say about this, your idea. While we're searching up our topic, we found out that AI technology with tourism can be very global, but at the same time, it this idea can be very original because technology is very diverse, depends on every country. So when we when we search about like South Korea, they're talking about
Kimchi, kimchi, kimchi,
five,
kimchi.
yeah, they're thinking about implementing 5G technology, while other countries are still developing AI technology in their tourism industry. So that's why we like consider about should we like make it more specific? Like should we just focus on South Korea? So, but thank you for your opinion. Like you're still considering about it.
Since Mr. Since you are actually in the tourism, practically touring somewhere right now, can you whisper some comments for the team? Or did you want to text message? Or if there's nobody else close to you on the bus, go ahead. Tell us your idea.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes.
now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Um, I'm not actually in the bus, but I'm heading to my hometown with a train. And thinking about the topic. After the COVID-19, after the post-COVID-19, um, how would the tourism industry might definitely specifically change before compared to before the COVID-19 period? That's my question about the presentation.
Good. I think the idea that us all talking about tourism when he's on a train going to tour somewhere is pretty incredible. And that he's using Wi-Fi as he travels. So that concept, it was impossible when I was your age, right? They didn't have email back then, let alone Wi-Fi and things like that. So what I would like you guys to start focusing on is continue focusing on your projects, but with this week's topic, with the art of war. What is that talking about? That's not usually telling people to generalize. It is telling people to know all information, which you can't, but if you try to know all information is good, usually with the art of war and anything, try to identify, at least in my opinion, this game of life and the art of war are rules to be more successful in this game of life. I think to be successful in the game of life, think about what your target wants. Whoever you're trying to impress, what does that person care about? Anybody else is not important. It's just extra. It's a bonus if anybody else likes it, but you should focus on who you are trying to impress. And it should not be me. It should be somebody that you're going to stay focused on for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or your whole lifetime that you're going to be working with. So does that answer your question? So you're talking about making a project, talking about how artificial intelligence helps with tourism, maybe around the world. What person do you really want to impress? Or what group of people do you really want to impress? And it, no offense, I like all of you guys, but you're going to forget my class maybe in a few hours. Or in a few years, you're probably going to forget me. Trust me, I forgot most of my professors. And so you're going to be focused on other things. What do they care about? This class with the university is increasingly lower and lower importance. Did you know that 113 universities and colleges, high schools, are closing in Korea every month? And since the start of 2020, I think it's something like 3,000 different schools have closed. And I'm not talking just closed for the weekend, I'm talking forever. So it's not directly because of people learning online and AI, those potential advantages. But a lot of people are saying around the world that that is one of the things. So if schools decrease in their advantage, that's just another reason you should be thinking longer term ahead. What is your long-term plans and who do you want to impress then? Make your project. Every one of you, thank you. You have gone beyond what I've really expected of you with some students, and you've made a professional presentation. You found some good research, great. You've started to write out a paper, great. But so what? Why? Why did you do that? Why do you care? My intention was to try to get you to think of that big picture. So if we go back to it, I hope you guys can see my screen. Since I have 3 different computers here, I can see what you're looking at. We see that you're supposed to be looking, number 1, at your assessment and planning. So assess everything around you in detail, make plans, do some calculations. That was in one guy's interpretation, another guy's interpretation, another guy's interpretation. So there's many people saying that assess your environment. It's very important. Are you assessing your environment and making plans for the future? Again, when I talk about plans, I talk about this. Do you have 10-year, 20-year plans? Most people in Asia usually may plan for an hour. And if they're really, really good, ambitious students, they may plan for the year after they graduate, maybe 2 years, 3 years later. Pia, could you tell us about your country, where you're from, and how often you hear people making plans from where you're from? Again, in Korea, a lot of people usually just plan for what they can see, or maybe a year in advance, or if you're super lucky, 2 or 3 years later, they'll make plans. Versus in Canada, some people say Canada's crazy. They're talking about retirement as soon as they can crawl and suck on the baby bottle. So, Pia, what is the planning in your home?
I'm from Germany, and we usually at least plan 5 years ahead. Like, for example, a very famous interview question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years, and maybe even 10 years? So even if you're maybe not exactly sure what you want to do, you should at least have some sort of vision that you can give these potential employers for what you want to do.
Right. And it's not just to impress employer, it's for you. Many people say, well, I don't know what I want to do. And so my answer to that is, well, if you don't plan, if you don't start making a decision, if you don't start doing anything, if you don't start getting experience, you won't have experience. You will not develop. Start doing anything. Just pick off, 10 different things you might like, start doing one. And fairly soon you're going to find out if you like it or not. And then if you don't like it, great. Then you don't like it, so your energy is more focused. Start doing one of the other things. And if you don't like that, then you know you're more of a specialist in those other remaining things. So start doing anything. Great. So that whole idea of assessing your environment and planning. Great. So the art of war idea number 2, the challenge. What is your challenge? In our class, some people say the challenge is just to get a good grade. Is it? Again, I'm over 50 years old. I don't remember most of my university life. And it's not because I was drunk and blacking out most of the time. It's because that was only a few years at the undergraduate level, 40 years ago. So what is your challenge? I identify several students, especially in Asia, their challenge is just to get a job. And so many of them, they plan to completely finish university. After they finish university, they're going to try to apply for a job, which means they're going to wait in line with many other people only after the after the employer posts a job saying that they're going to potentially hire somebody. And then they have somebody at a desk interviewing people that are identified by a computer software program. And that's basically just following others. Does a company want somebody that's going to be following others? Or does a company want somebody that can actually think and lead and manage developments, growth? So anything you do today at any time, think of that bigger picture. What is that environment you're around? Most students, they just do the classwork that a teacher says, read this book, write a paper about it. Well, great, but we just finished saying that a lot of schools are getting closed. Last week, Singapore is super famous globally for education, and yet a university in Singapore, it's the second time I've heard a university in Singapore has closed. So that environment, that focus needs to be broader, needs to be bigger. So just don't work just hard. Hard work is nice. Your grandparents say work hard. I don't know, wash your underwear and you'll have a good, successful life. Well, that might be your grandmother's theory, but the Art of War 2,500-year-old saying is usually a little bit better. They're saying that don't just work hard, work wise. Anybody understand how does the Art of War specifically talk about don't work hard? Anybody understand what's that talking about? So if we go through it, the Art of War, if I introduce it, it talks about, and it's on the History Channel, it's super, super famous. It's saying that if the instructions are not clear and the commands are not explicit, it's the commander's fault and you should basically kill the commander. Well, I hope what I'm trying to tell you is clear. Learn about your environment. Specifically because they said this 2,500 years ago, this first guy that created this idea was nobody. And some people started gossiping about him. And the emperor was looking for somebody to help in China against the invading people. And so he heard this person, and the emperor talked to this guy. He said, I hear you know how to train anybody. And he says, I believe so. And then he goes on and says, could you really train anybody? And he says, I believe so. And so he says, okay, here are my 20 different girlfriends, my concubines. Go ahead, train them. And he did. And so he taught the concubines what they had to do. And the concubines were giggling, laughing, saying, ha, 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 I'm supposed to be a sex slave and just cute and pretty, not supposed to be a fighter. So they weren't really listening. They didn't pay attention. And so he asked again, is the instruction clear? They all agreed. Yes, it's clear. Do you know how to do this? And they said, yes. Are you going to do it? And they said, no. And so he chopped off the first person's head. And then he said again, okay, are you going to start doing it? And everybody started to do very, very well. He was able to train these girlfriends, concubines, to be able to fight very, very well some of the actual emperor's real fighters, which was interesting. So the idea that some people focus on different things. To win 100 battles is not the height of a tech. I'm not talking about you getting 100% on all of your tests in school. My daughter, she has a university report card saying 100% for every class she's in. And I kind of argue with my daughter and I argue with my wife that I say that's bad. My wife is saying, am I nuts? Like crazy. I think that it's better to actually focus your attention on your lifelong dreams. So let your plans be as dark as night, then strike like a thunderbolt. The whole idea of there's many different Art of War commandments, whether it's the weather, the train, leadership, military doctrine, and most importantly, moral influence. pay attention to all of these things, but it's looking at all of these things, not just your classwork in front of you. What is your long-term plan that you want, and how can you be successful with that? It's also talking about all of warfare is deception. I hate that idea, but there's a lot of truth in it. When I started teaching about 20 years ago, I was teaching in a department, and there was obviously business people, economics people, but there's some political science people around me. And one of the political science professors is a close friend of mine, and we were talking about how to teach. Since I was new, she said, come on into my class. And so I can watch how she teaches, since she was a very well-respected teacher. And so I went into her first class, and the first thing I heard her teaching a group of about 50 students was, for political science, what is that? What are you supposed to know? And she said, you're supposed to learn how to lie. I was like, holy shit, a teacher is telling students to lie and cheat? This is crazy. But 2,500-year-old military and management rules are saying the same thing. If we look at it with different words, understand what you know is not really that important. What is important is what other people observe or what other people see. So especially in Korea and Japan, your image is super, super important. It doesn't matter what you really like. You have to give an image of fitting in. If you don't fit in, you'll have a lot of problems. And so it's not really lying. It's trying to have that image to fit in. And that's part of the idea of the deception. So more related to that, it's essential to seek out the enemies who have come to spy, check who's loyal with you. That's very, very important in East Asia, but around the world. To move your enemy, entice them with something that he is certain to take or to like. Another rule is the way a wise general can achieve greatness beyond ordinary men is through foreknowledge. So looking ahead. There's several of these that we can go through. There's 3 more, but I want to come back to the idea of our class. And Mr. Moon's presentation, his sentence that he finished with was, should I be more specific? So I'm asking, what is your plan? Forget class. Why do you ask me? You should be asking yourself, what is your long-term plan? What do you want to do in 20 years? And then make your paper to help you get there. Who cares what I think? Is that a little bit clearer, Mr. Moon? Jung Moon, are you still there, or do I have to put you to sleep?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you want to do in 20 years?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh. Actually, my final goal is becoming a pilot.
Becoming a pirate. Awesome. I want to help you.
Pilot.
Okay, I guess that's okay too. So why not make your paper related to that? How can AI help tourism? Like, where should you be focused on playing? Where is the most traffic internationally? Or where is the newest areas that are growing? So trying to apply this type of AI, learning about the future technology, very, very smart, but then try to go even farther. The more specific you can become, the better. So if I remind you, what I was saying in class before is that no matter what you want to make in my class, no offense, Mr. Moon, Lubeck, yeah, you guys are great students, but you're you're a little bit younger than me, and I think you have a little bit less experience than me. I'm not trying to be a what do you call it, a pretty boy or a prince or a king or something like that, but your experience is limited to your age. And so for you to be considered the best with the art of war, talking about using deception, It matters what other people think of you. However you write your paper, you're writing your paper based off of, I don't know, 20 years of experience. So find what is the best paper in the world related to your expertise, related to your specialization, and accept that that is one of the most respected, most reliable papers in the world. And so something about how it was created, its style and its format, it must have some meaning behind it. You can spend, I think I've spent 30 years in university, or just copy that style and format. Learn from those people. Surround yourself with the best people possible. As not just me, there's far better people in the world than me. So find a paper that is one of the best in the world and try to make your paper similar to it. And as you're presenting yourself, you guys said that you had references and you repeated it about 5 times, which is good. But do people in the world care? Most people in the world don't care about references. Don't misunderstand. I have told you to promote references. But what I was trying to say is to develop that image of you being an expert. And so if you're just referencing some drunk on the street corner and your neighbor's dog, how he can say hello in the morning, it might be cute. But if you want to be reliable, start telling people this is the most reliable journal, or this is the most respected journal, and what they're saying. The listener is probably not going to know what is the most respected. The listener is probably not going to understand what is Scopus or what is Web of Science. But by saying it is one of the world's most respected, period, just those short words, the listener may be deceived into thinking you are one of also the most respected. You're connected with the most respected information. And by showing this most respected information and then talking about your PPT, it's great. That's the class assignment. This whole idea of writing a paper, it's optional, right? Why do I talk about it? Why do I talk about that paper? Look back. Why do I talk about doing a paper? Because you saw in the class notes, I'm just going to play a mind game with you. There's no points for a paper here, a final paper, right? So I've made the class easy for people to understand. You get points just to make an introduction. You can do it by PPT, the background, the surveys, and then the final presentation. But it doesn't say you have to write a 100-word paper. So Ulugbek, why do I care? And then after Ulugbek, we can go back to Jung Moon. Ulugbek, what's your guess?
I think you want to teach us or using the Scopus or reliable articles in order to improve our okay, I say social life balance, maybe.
Okay, so what I understand you're saying is I want to admit that I might be an idiot, and there are other very smart things you can learn from. And so maybe what you're saying is just learn well. Great. But you can learn well and present well just with a PPT, a PowerPoint presentation. So my question a little bit is close to that. Thank you for answering that. I do want you to learn the world's best. But again, I'm not just, that's part of what I'm asking. The other part I'm asking is, why do I get excited about you guys writing an actual paper and not a PowerPoint presentation? Jung Moon, you had your hand up?
I was like, I wanted to ask you something else, but I can answer about this. Like,
okay.
We are looking at your PowerPoint. Like, there's a green line.
Mm-hmm.
You want us to go beyond that green line.
Yes, this top green line is the hard work area here.
Yeah.
So this is the check mark. But the most important stuff, the wise work, is outside this green line. And it's almost no extra energy to do that. So yes, my question again is, you can research details and you can present in a PowerPoint present slide. But have you guys ever seen a world famous journal of PowerPoint presentation slides? I don't think that exists yet. It's starting, and the website called SlideShare is slowly becoming famous. There may be some student websites that I don't know about that share good slides and PowerPoint slides, but most of the world, they track the world's best information in these very fancy magazines called journals. So whatever you make, if you put it into a journal, if you put it into a paper, and then that your paper can be published in a journal, it doesn't end there. If you make a PowerPoint presentation slide, probably next week, your slide will unfortunately never be looked at again by most people, maybe not even you. If it's really good, I will use it and I will share it with other students. But if it's made into an essay and you publish that, then you can, number one, publish that, and then that publication put in your resume, and that could make you more and more famous every year that goes by. The more people that see it, the more famous you become. And if you're really, really smart, most universities, for some reason, universities tell professors to publish in these journals that don't really help the professor. It's better if you make your own book and you sell that book like a training guide, because if you do that sales of a book, anytime forever somebody buys that book, your family will continue to get an income. And eventually you don't need to work anymore. You can just do what you love. So those type of things, they're not discussed in a regular class. It's part of the art of war. It's part of seeing your terrain. It's part of understanding that whole assessment. And it's not just the assessment of inside this green line, it's the big picture. What are you doing inside a classroom? And a local company, what are they doing? And completely unrelated or disconnected is, thousands of journals. And maybe some people say unrelated, there's the multinational companies. They're so big that some people say they might not be connected to this at all. But if you see the big picture, they can all be connected. So if you find that connection where everything comes together, your life should be easier. I'm probably talking too much. So how about Thomas? Good morning. Can you summarize what you think I'm trying to get you to learn today?
Well, I would say that one of the things that they are trying us to teach is that the grade is not the most important thing, and that we should focus on our long-term goal instead of just focusing on getting an A.
Good.
Yeah, I would say that's
So
the summarization.
in chapter 1, I was teaching you about Maslow, Herzberg, McGregor, all of these world famous theories of management. For many years, even today, many teachers say Maslow's law is what you have to follow. But I have already proven in class, not just me, but other people have proven he's wrong. He's only okay in his environment. Same thing for Herzberg, same thing for Gregor. So all of these amazing minds are no different than you. They come up with an analysis of something. You can come up with an analysis of something. So understand that anybody can do anything. There are laws, but it depends on the people you're working with. Specifically understanding that AI is very important. This next idea, look at the time. A lot of people think of United States as being very important because they used to be so powerful. Well, they forgot that The United Kingdom was far more powerful. They controlled India and many, many other countries for many, many years. How long did it take for United Kingdom to go from nothing to success? And then how long did the United States go from farming or agrarian to the industrial? Well, it took United States about 100 years. And how did they do it? They did it by copying the United Kingdom. And so then we look at the next big famous country, Japan. Japan went from farming to industrial by copying USA and then also copying the UK, and they became industrial in 70 years. Korea did it in a world famous time, in like 20 to 30 years. Again, half the time, half the time, half the time. Vietnam and China now are going from the agrarian to industrial, and some people say it will be less than 10 years. So be aware of those details. We talked about quite a bit of that. We also talked about the idea of how you can learn from others just by watching what other people are doing. Since you see that China and Korea are growing super, super fast, but they're also, is it related that they're growing one of the fastest in the world because their students are studying almost the most in the world, and their students are focused almost the most on science, technology, engineering, and maths, versus in the United States, they're only studying about half that time, and they're also studying swimming and skiing and cheerleading and things like that. So they're a lot more complacent. Maybe that's why they're not growing as fast. So we looked at those things. We also looked at knowing culture, power distance, individualism, the idea that there are many ways to identify culture. Hofstede was one, Hall is another, Clockhorn, Stradbroke, Trompenaar, Schwartz, Globe. These are explaining those details. And it's important to know who you are. Our class time is basically up. I think you understand the overall idea of the art of war, but do you know who you are? I've said it before. I have asked students for many, many years, and I've asked adults, and most people surprisingly can't describe who they are in a way that differentiates them from somebody 20 feet away or somebody on the other side of the world. So identify who you are internationally. And this humanmetrics.com or the 16personalities.com, the Carl Jung, which generally is the same thing as Sigmund Freud, he specialized in this, and it's a very easy thing to do to identify who you are, to identify this. So start learning about these details. I see Jung Moon, you have your hand up again? You're on mute.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, for the dog.
I think it's cool.
Since we're talking about the articles and Scopias, our group had troubles with finding a PDF file for Scopias articles from the Keimyung University Library. Even though it says there is a PDF file, it was very hard to get a PDF file. Can you give us some tip for that?
Sure. So say hello to your dog. Maybe I should bring my dog over to introduce him. In the first file that I presented in class, you can see on the screen now, it's the student requirements. And the title of that is the bit.ly/class requirements. If you go through there, I talked about what is reliable. So it's not Scopias, it's Scopus. It is good. It's usually the easiest to identify. Web of Science is even more precise, but you should also accept the fact that while those articles are valuable because they get international experts to review them, international experts take a long time. And some of these stories can be 5, 6, 7 years old, brand new stories. It may take 7 years for those experts just to review it and accept it. So you need also to accept new stuff. And so CNN, BBC, blogs, Facebook, social media, that's new stuff. And in this presentation, it talks about how you can go through and use the Keimyung library, use a good university library to sign in. If you go to the library, it says library.kmu.ac.kr. You don't even need to sign in yet, and you will get this search area. You search for something specific, and you will come up with a variety of results. When you limit those results, especially limiting them to the content provider, if you go down to the content provider and just limit the Scopus, where it says the e-material is just Scopus, you will be able to see some Scopus files. That's one way to do it. Once you go through that, it will probably ask you to log on. So then if you log on, then you may have to search again, since the website's not fully perfected yet. But once you go through that, you will be able to see there's a way to see the file and then download it. The university is changing the library, it seems, almost every year. So talk to your department administration, talk to the university, library managers. It's their job to make sure you have access to that. And if you have any problems accessing that, if this is not clear enough, kick the ass of the administration and the library, because you are paying a lot of your tuition just for that access. That's more valuable.
Yeah, because we found like a lot of good articles for our topic. But those articles were not accessible because we have read your PowerPoint. We did exactly what you did, but we couldn't open the file. So
talk to the library manager.
Yeah, I think
because it's his job to make sure that it's okay. Unfortunately, the university has been changing some of the website details and some of the connections are lost. Please also understand that, for example, in this last, in here, for example, these search results, it's whatever you're searching for, this says that there's 2.8 million results just in the English language, and there's 26,000 in German, 25,000 in French, etc. So there's many, many different articles. And if you're just looking for Scopus, again, 2.8 million results are Scopus. Each one of these results is like $50. And if the library has that access, that's worth many millions and millions of dollars. And each journal is trying to protect themselves so people can't illegally download it. So there's a lot of security on each different magazine or journal, and the library has to go through all of that stuff. So it is complicated to protect that valuable information, unfortunately. So we should accept it's going to be complicated, but right now with the library changes, it's a little bit more complicated than it should be. So the library staff should be able to walk you through it and make sure you can download all of those things. Again,
sometimes the universities don't have access to all the publisher sites, but it is possible to go to the publisher site directly and ask for access. And sometimes they open it for you. Sometimes you can also write emails to the people who wrote it directly. That also works. And if it doesn't work, I could also, because I'm from a different university as well, so maybe we also have different access. So I could also look if I am able to access some papers.
Good, thank you for that. Be aware of a couple of things. So that's good information. There are sites like this. This site that, can you see this on my screen, Jong-Moon? It's the HTTP sci-hub. This is like a back door of research articles. Since Most of those valuable journals are charging people a lot of money to read them. Professors like me don't really like that idea. We're doing it, we're writing these things to help people learn. And so if journals charge sometimes thousands of dollars, as Pia said, if you contact the publisher, usually the publisher will say, sure, we'll give you access if you give us $50 for each story, or you give us millions of dollars for a year membership. Yeah, we'll give you all the articles you want, which is not cool. There are some Creative Commons, there's some open websites where you can, that's slowly increasing, but this site here is a site where some professors, I'm not going to say who, if they get an article, they upload it here, and you guys can, basically it's a backdoor. You can read through here for free. It's illegal. You're not supposed to be doing it. Be careful you don't get caught with this illegal stuff. Again, the proper way to go through it is through the university library. The university, they're not paying for every publisher and all details, but any of the most reliable stuff, it has to be here for the university to be considered internationally reliable. So I hope that's clear. Thank you for that question. What else? How much time do we have left in class today? Tuong, did you have some other things that you wanted to say before we run out of time?
So we still have 20 minutes.
Good. I'd just like to point out that this file is in our class extra reading materials. A lot of the teaching files that I've had are in our class materials. It's not very well organized, but it's definitely in there related to our class. What I'm trying to point out now is this: HBR, Harvard Business Review. UNO, would you agree that Harvard is a good university or bad university? Can you tell me, is that like the top 10% of universities, or is it just an average university, or is it the bottom 10%? What would you say about Harvard Business Review?
One of the top 5 universities in the world.
Great. Any idea why? Let's take a look. Here is an article. This article is teaching you about strategy, and this looks complicated. Interesting. So maybe Jung-Woo Moon may like this because it's Southwest Airlines activity system, but is there a reference here? Where did they get this information from? No reference. Is there a reference anywhere here? References anywhere here? Let's look at the end of this report, this research paper. It just says, that's it. Like, it goes down to your final conclusion here. There's no references in this file. So again, I ask you, seriously? Do you say this is the top 10% of universities in the world where they write things and you can't even check if it's accurate? The most reliable research articles in the world, they get reliable by saying, here's what I think, but I make that thinking because of these facts. And every good paper, you should know how to make that research, how to copy that research, and how to check every single detail. So you can test it if it's true or not. But if you don't give any references, you just get a guy at the front saying, because I said so. How's that working? Right? So that whole idea of the this idea of illusion and reality, weaknesses and strengths, is Harvard actually showing you the best in the world? Did you realize that if you want to publish in the Harvard books, you have to be a Harvard professor, or you have to give co-authorship to one of the other Harvard professors? Even if you wrote it all by yourself, Jung-Woo Moon, you'd have to find a Harvard professor, agree that he's allowed to put his name on your paper, and only after then you're allowed to publish in their paper. So it's marketing. It's making themselves look good. I'm not saying it's bad. You know, that whole idea of making themselves look good, it's smart. It's working. But if you really know details, you know that they're not actually proven. So be aware of that idea of the illusion. When you're presenting yourself, don't just present yourself based off of what you think is good. UNO, let's say, just for example, hypothetically, you are in Korea and you want to do your paper and get a job at Samsung. What do you think would happen if you just quite honestly and ethically walk up to Samsung, knock on Samsung's door saying, "Hi, I'm a student and I'd like to ask you this 20 questions for my survey." What is the executive of Samsung going to do? We can't hear you, Mr. Yu. You know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Maybe he said he had a important meaning, or he has important things to do, rather than just accept him by interview.
And so actually you are doing the same thing. You are using the illusion of being polite. Isn't the translation of that is "I'm busy, don't bother me, kid, go away," and hang up on you?
Yeah, honestly.
So if you say you're a student, that illusion, that image of you in Korea is that you're just a young person without experience. And many people in Korea want to associate with people at the same level as them. So how can you do that? Again, if you go up to them, say that you're part of a consulting group. And how many people are in our class, Thomas? About 10 people in our class, including me. I work for you, and we have 3 teaching teams working for you. So 10 to 15 people in your consulting group. And I have a PhD and an MBA and a global executive MBA and 20 years of business experience, and I work for you. If you walk up to Samsung and say, "We have this consulting group of about 20 different people, including PhDs with executive experience, with the world's most reliable information," is the Samsung person going to listen to you then? What do you think, Thomas? If UNO says, "I'm just a student and I want to ask you questions," versus if you say you have 15 different people in a consulting group with this world's most reliable information, don't you think that image makes you look better? And it's not really lying, but it's that whole idea of the illusion, understanding the illusion and the reality. What other people think of you sometimes is more important than what the reality may be. So be aware of that. How can you engage the force? You realize, even though I can fail you, I want you guys to be happy. I want you to learn. That's why I'm doing it. But you pay my salary. So why do professors treat students bad if you pay our salary? And ultimately, if you complain, you can get the professors fired. So that image is very important. Understand how that works. There's many different variations. You have to adapt to each different group of people you're working with. Understand it's not a country culture. Places like India and China have thousands of different cultures. You need to identify your key target that you're looking at and how you can adapt to them, how you can move and develop with those people. So this is the overall idea of the art of war. We've gone through a few of these. I think one of the last ones I was talking to you about is all warfare is deception that we were talking about, and then a few more. This is talking about the winning army realizes the conditions for victory first, then fights. Isn't that the same thing as what we just said way up here? Understand what victory is, what success is, and then do something. Because if you're doing something that doesn't help you get there, you're wasting your time. Why are you in my class if this is not helping you get to a better level of happiness or success, whatever you want to do. So realize the conditions for victory first and then fight. Those skilled in war bring the enemy to where you want to fight. Don't fight where the enemy has the advantage. You can control the environment. It is essential for victory that the generals are unconstrained by their leaders. Don't just be a mouse or a sheep following other people. Make sure that whoever you're with is doing things for the right reasons, not just to impress some other bigger sheep in front of them. Hopefully you guys have noticed in my slides, I use a picture of Sean the sheep. That's sarcastic because sheep are cute, but I don't want you to be sheep. Don't follow blindly. Understanding the big picture. Move only when you see an advantage and there's something to gain. If there's not going to be an advantage for you, if there's not something to gain, even if you want to help give gain to somebody else, okay. But if you're just working blindly for somebody else for no reason, why are you doing it? Another rule, when the enemy occupies the high ground, which means if the enemy has an advantage, don't try to, give him the middle finger. Don't try to make him upset. Don't confront him. Some people say it's a very, very bad thing to do. If you're going to be in a fight and somebody falls down, you should not kick him when he's on the ground. Well, I don't know about you, but I have 5 kids in my family and several bigger, older brothers when I was growing up. When they used to pick on me all the time. And when they fell down, I used to kick them as much as I could and then run away. For you to win, reconsider those rules of life, right? There are some armies that should not be fought, right? If your bigger brother can kill you with a flick of the finger, be his friend, don't try to fight him. That's all part of the art of war. Some people say it's not ethical. Well, really? You want to do something that's definitely going to hurt you and you say that's smart? I don't think so. Think of the bigger picture. And then know your enemy and know yourself. And in 100 battles, you will never be in peril. What that means is know your enemy and know yourself, and you will be successful. And that's generally what the art of war is talking about. How does that relate to my introduction? Ulrich or Thomas, how does that relate to my introduction? When I talk about know your enemy and know yourself, do I talk about that? Ulrich, Thomas?
Well, yeah, I think that it is important to know what the other person wants if we want to get something from them. And it is also important to know ourselves to be able to know what we can offer them, for example.
Yes, and don't forget that many of my presentations encouraged you to learn who you are and then learn the culture of other people. So go through that mind map activity, then go through that humanmetrics.com, then go through the 16personalities.com to learn who you are, and then try to understand not everybody in the world, but mostly the important people for your future. What is their culture? Because these websites are not, culture is not just talking about what type of opera music you like. These websites are talking about your personality, your characteristics. They're also talking about how you learn differently than other people. There are different ways of learning, and there's different ways of communicating. And if your boss communicates in a different way, these websites will teach you how to modify details so that you're better appreciated by your enemy, or better appreciated by your boss, or better appreciated by your teacher or your girlfriend or your wife, whatever it's going to be. It tells you how to connect. But the first thing you must understand is who are you? And then understand the other person. That is the art of war. Everything else, no matter what they say, if somebody slaps you in the cheek, I think they say that in the Bible, just turn the other cheek. well, I got to give respect to the Bible, but if I'm in a fight, I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to follow the art of the war. You realize that which one is an older book? I'm not saying to be religious. I'm just analyzing the facts. The art of war was created when? And the Bible was created when? The art of war is hundreds of years older than the Bible. It was around far earlier than the Bible. And it's still strong, and it hasn't created wars in the Middle East or anywhere else. So be aware of those details. Hopefully that helps understand that. Let me see if I can share more of these details. What I'd like to do is get you guys to try to talk for a little while about your environment. Can you guys identify art of war aspects in your life today? What is your environment? What is a challenge for you? What is your goal? Who is somebody that you should be friends with? Who is somebody that maybe you don't really have to be friendly with? You just have to pretend to be friendly with. What is the art of war for you to get to your success? I don't want anybody to die. It looks like your brains are going to boil over or something, but think of the bigger picture. How about this for an example? Ulrich, Thomas, UNO, Jungle Moon, Pia, I bet, Jacobir, I guess you're also in the group, I just can't see you. I guess that most of your lives, you have heard your mom and your dad and many teachers telling you, I hope you're going to be a good student, work really hard, and then after you graduate, get a good job in a good company. Is there anybody that's parents have not told you that?
Can I share my experience and also the environment in Vietnam about the
Absolutely.
students?
Can you
Yeah.
share that right after I finish the story? Because I'll probably forget. I'm getting old.
Okay, sorry. So
before
I'm
my
gonna share
students
very
leave.
quick because we have only 3 minutes left.
Right. So what I
Yes.
wanted to say is people tell you to go to school, work very hard, work for a big company.
Yes.
Well, did Bill Gates graduate from a university and finish school? Steve Jobs? Richard
Drops
Branson?
out.
No. So why are they saying doing it? What about the whole idea of working hard for these big companies? If you get a job as an employee, you realize you're probably making twice the money of your annual salary for the CEO, for the company, right? And the CEO is just paying you a small amount. So why don't people talk more about developing your own business? Start thinking of those bigger picture. What about that whole idea of you're supposed to work really hard and eventually after 50 years of working for a company, then they will give you some money for you to retire on. But the alternative way to say that is make $1 million of investments and then you can retire. Do you realize that in many countries, like in Canada, there are programs where I can borrow 95% of the price to buy a house. And so I only need 5% to buy a house. And then that house needs to be slowly paid off. But if I rent the house to other people, those strangers renting the house, they pay to buy the house. And that house goes up in value every year and pays for me to have a monthly living allowance. You can travel around the world. You don't have to work for 50 years. You just need 5% of a house that's a good house, a smart house. So let's go on to you, Tom. You wanted to talk about Vietnamese art of war and how you can grow.
So in in the workforce, I mean the working environment. So even all the employees, workers, so they also try to stand out. They try to get the job done and also develop their communication skills, and they know how to get along with the managers, especially with the higher position of the company. Yes. So kind of like even they don't show up the fightings among employees, but in their mind, and so what they understand, how to stand out. They try to go beyond above other staff in the same room, the office. Yes, so communication skill is very important. The B's idea beyond outside of the working the working office. So beside of working hours, so they also can hang out and invite the other managers or the employees, just get to know each other beside of the working environment. So for example, holiday is a good time to to have a private conversation. So normally in Vietnam, when we visit someone privately, so we usually give give this is as the opening conversation among everyone.
Similar, same thing in Korea. The first time you visit somebody's house in Korea, you're supposed to bring them some toilet paper or soap, and a few other things like that. There are meanings behind it, but knowing about those things, knowing the environment helps you be more successful. Even the idea of next week is supposed to be a holiday. Unfortunately, Pia and Ulagbek and Jacobir, you're probably going to be left by yourselves when the Koreans go back to their family. But one thing that you may want to know is, don't do it for me, but for other people. A lot of people usually give gifts to their special professor or their boss that they're working for. If your boss doesn't get a small gift from you, he will think that you don't like him or you don't care. And so you give a small little apple, don't give it to me, but whoever you want to go to graduate school for, or whoever you want to have that type of help with in the future. If they're Korean, for sure, small gift to them like an orange or an apple will make that teacher think higher of you, following the Korean thinking style. That's the Korean culture. So class is finished.